Welcome to the Weekly Roar, coming live from the Lion's Den, helping new managers become great leaders and awesome bosses. And now, here's your host, Greg Storch.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Weekly Roar! I'm glad to be back in a more traditional Weekly Roar setting with you now, so welcome back everyone. For my fellow countrymen, I hope you all had a great 4th of July weekend. Today, I'm going to spend some time recapping the last 4 weeks where I launched 4 micro videos. But before I jump into all that, I'm going to spend a minute on introductions. I'm Greg Storch. I'm the founder of Lion Enterprise, a leadership development and coaching business. I'm a certified professional life and leadership coach and certified leadership speaker and trainer. And you, my friends, are in the Lion's Den for the Weekly Roar. All right, so those micro videos I launched over the past 4 weeks were designed to be like a prep course as part of the upcoming series called Effective Thinking, Your Pathway to Success. I wanted to mix things up a little bit, so during the past 4 weeks, I launched those micro videos on the Lion's Den group page and just left them there for a week. After a week, the previous video was removed and the next one posted. Well, just in case not all of you were able to catch them while the videos were active, I thought I'd spend today just giving you a quick overview of all 4 sessions. That way, when we start the Effective Thinking series next Wednesday, we'll all be starting on the same page. With that said, let's go ahead and jump into the recap. Now, the first video I posted was called Whiny, Why Now? Why not? In that short video, I started out discussing some of the reasons why someone might want to change their thinking. I mentioned that successful people are good thinkers. It's the difference maker that separates the successful people from the unsuccessful ones. And like most things, people aren't born with the ability to be great thinkers. They learn it, and you can too. You can learn to change your thinking, and if you do, it will be the master key that will unlock the door and change your life. So that's why I called it, Why Me? Why now? Why not? Good thinking can help us do a lot of things. It helps us make money, it helps us solve problems, and it can help us create opportunities. So that first week, I shared a few things for you to know if you were going to consider changing your thinking. Now, the first thing I shared was that just because you decide you want to change your thinking doesn't mean it's just going to happen. If you want to be a better thinker, you're going to have to work at it. But once you do, the good ideas, they're just going to start flowing. The good ideas aren't going to come find you if you just sit there and change nothing. You have to go out and seek the new ideas. So just know that this isn't going to happen automatically. Now, the second thing I shared in that first video was that it isn't easy to change our thinking. Back in April 1928, Henry Ford was quoted as saying, "Thinking is the hardest work there is, which is the probable reason why so few engage in it." Thinking takes effort, and it's not easy. Ford was right. So if you want to engage in the process to change yours, use anything you can to help yourself improve. And the third and final thing I shared in that first video was that putting forth an effort to become a better thinker is an investment in you. Once you learn to think differently, your world will change and your thinking will provide an unlimited resource to you that will serve to help you achieve your greatest success. A human mind that has been developed to think is like a never-ending supply of gold. It's priceless. Hopefully, I answered the question, why me? Why now? Hey, why not, right? Okay, moving on. The following week, I launched the second micro video called The Price to Be Better. The whole idea behind this one was that if we wanted to be better today than we were yesterday, we have to be intentional with our actions and we have to commit to the ongoing process. Making that commitment to the ongoing process is the price you have to pay to be better. I shared 6 things we have to do if we want to pay the price to be better. And the first thing I shared was the acronym GIGO, G-I-G-O, and that stood for garbage in, garbage out. We have to pay attention to what we're using to get the thinking process started. Understanding that acronym is a good way to remind ourselves that we should seek inputs like books, tapes, podcasts, and of course, people. The idea is to be on the lookout for something that captures your attention, something that makes you curious. And when you do, write it down and keep it in front of you wherever you like to do your best thinking. Now, for me, I told you I do my best thinking while I'm running. So, of course, it's not really effective for me to be running down the street carrying a stack of papers with me, but I can take voice memos along on the run. And so I record voice memos with the things that I would traditionally write down. The second thing I mentioned was something I speak about all the time, and that was the need to watch who we surround ourselves with. If you want to get better at thinking, surround yourself with those who are good thinkers themselves. They should challenge and stretch you. I reminded you that iron sharpens iron. If you need to sharpen your thinking skills, get around others who are already sharp in that area and let them influence you. The third thing was about choices. I always say that life is all about the choices we make. We are where we are right now as a result of the sum of all of our choices. And when it comes to thinking better, the choice we have to make is to choose the thoughts we have. We must have good thoughts. Thinking is a discipline, and we have to consistently put ourselves in the right space to think, shape, and stretch our thoughts. So develop a schedule, a time that is dedicated to spending time with your thoughts. When you do, make sure you have paper handy so you can capture those ideas. Okay, and then there was this fourth one, and that was a reminder to check the expiration date. Yes, our thoughts and ideas, they have a short shelf life, so remember that. The key is not just thinking good thoughts, but taking action on the ideas that you generate. I shared a quote with you from Honoré de Balzac, who said, "It's easy to sit up and take notice. What's difficult is getting up and taking action." Boom. Now, that fifth thing was that we need to get in touch with our emotions. Our emotions help create mental momentum, and that gets us moving through the process of good thinking. The thing is that if we wait to feel like doing it, it's just never going to happen. We can't wait until we feel like thinking to do it. But if you can get over the hump of that and get engaged in the process of thinking, you can use that to keep moving forward. It's like accomplishing goals. The first time you do it, you use the momentum of feeling that success to keep you setting more goals and taking more action. Well, the same goes for thinking. And then the last thing was just a reminder that thinking is a process. So you just repeat this over and over again to become better at thinking. Each time you take these actions, you'll generate new ideas, but you can't rely on your first great idea and try to milk it for all it's worth. Don't become that one-hit wonder. Would you rather try to retire on one small nugget of gold or have an entire gold mine in your backyard? See, if you want that gold mine, you have to keep repeating the process and generating new ideas. So those were the 6 things to do to become a good thinker. It's the price that we're going to have to pay to be better, to get better at thinking. First, be mindful of what you expose your brain to. Seek good input. Second, surround yourself with good thinkers. Next, choose the thoughts that you think. Then, take action on the good ideas. Spark momentum with your emotions, and then finally, rinse and repeat. Okay, and that brings us into the next week. So that following week, I launched the third micro video, and I called that one Prepare to Start Thinking Again. Now that week, I talked about how we think up the things we want to think on. And I suggested 5 steps to take to find and mature good thoughts. While it wasn't the only way, it is one way of doing it. So remember that. Do what's right for you. You could use that process or develop your own. But as a reminder, it takes an effort to discover and develop good thoughts. If you remembered this one, if you saw this video, this is the one where I likened this process to molding a piece of clay. I told you that our thoughts are the clay, and in order to make something out of that clay, we have to really work at it. So using that analogy, I shared these 5 steps to getting properly prepared to think. The first step was that we have to get the actual clay to work with. So the clay is our thoughts. I asked you to think about the best place you can be alone with your thoughts. And wherever that was, I said to designate it as your thinking place. If you want to frequently generate ideas, first go to your designated thinking place and go there with the intention that you expect to generate good thoughts, and eventually they'll start to flow. And then you will finally have your little piece of clay. Now, the second step was that we have to then mold that clay. I shared that we do it by holding space for molding our thoughts. When clay's being molded, it has to be squished and kneaded to loosen it up more. You see, thoughts have to mature, kind of like wine. They have to be shaped until they have substance. People rarely, if ever, think a fully formed and mature thought that doesn't require further scrutiny, further molding, right? So the key there was to find a spot where you can write your thoughts down so they can be further scrutinized. Think of writing down and scrutinizing your thoughts as molding the clay. Molding your thoughts can be done almost anywhere you want, as long as you have the ability to write things down and question them without interruptions. Then the third step was to stretch that clay. Generating good thoughts and shaping them are the first 2 steps, but we can't stop there. If we do, we can miss out on adding and expanding our thoughts and ideas. And sometimes it requires that we add a little more clay to the thing that we're trying to make. So find a place that will allow you to stretch your thoughts. You do that by sharing that thought or idea with others. That helps to expand them. Even though I mentioned it a million times, I reminded you during that video that we go a lot further with others than we do by ourselves. So we can stretch our thoughts by sharing them with others. When you do, you begin to find the potential for that thought. In other words, you begin to see the potential of that piece of clay becoming a vase or a vase. Now, the fourth step I shared with you was that we have to find a place to apply our ideas and thoughts. If you want your thoughts to really have the impact they could have, you have to share them before you try to apply them. And I mentioned 3 places that you might want to start. Of course, always start with yourself. The first place to start was yourself, because you have to believe in the idea before you can get others to. If not, you're going to never land that idea with others. The second was with people who influence others. We call them key players. They're the ones who carry thoughts from idea to implementation. And then the last one I mentioned was with the ones who are most affected by your idea if it gets implemented. That's where you'll get your greatest feedback. So then the fifth and final step was to just let it go. Release the idea and take the action needed. Make that vase. You know, there was a Japanese proverb I shared that says, in part, that vision without action is just a daydream. There's no sense in taking time to go through the process of molding and stretching that piece of clay if you can't turn it into something that can be used in real life. So grab that piece of clay, mold it, stretch it, scrutinize it, and then turn it into that masterpiece. Finding the right places for you to do those things will surely prepare you to start thinking again. And that brought us to the fourth and final micro video that I posted just last week. And that one was called, Who Do I Think I Am? During that video, I shared the story about how my wife and I love the challenge of a good escape room. We've completed several of them just in the nick of time, and that had a lot to do with the fact that my wife is really a great thinker, especially under pressure. That's how I described a good thinker, and you may have described what you believe is a good thinker in a different way. Well, that was really the point of that fourth video. It isn't just one thing. Being a good thinker is a mix of several skills, and good thinkers are the ones who develop those skills as best they can. What I love most about being a good thinker is that it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care if you went to public school or a private school. It doesn't matter if you're black or white or brown. It doesn't care if you're 52 or 22. It just doesn't matter. The only thing that matters really is having the desire to engage in the process on a daily basis. If you want to become a successful person, you're going to need to grab onto those pieces of good thinking, and those are the skills I'll be covering starting next week as we dive into the heart of the Effective Thinking series. I'll be talking about strategic thinking, having realistic thoughts, thinking in terms of the big picture, creative thinking, reflection, and one of my all-time favorites, challenging popular thinking. The reason why this series is so important is because, well, personally, I think one of the biggest problems, we see it even in our school system, is that all we're told is what to think. But in order to become a great thinker, you have to learn how to think. And that's what this series will help you do. So over the next 11 weeks, I'm going to cover the skills, the 11 skills that you can develop in order to become a better thinker. Now, some of these skills you might find you're already doing well, and others, maybe not so much. Take notes on which ones you need to get better at and begin to master them all. Soon you'll see that the way you think is starting to change, and when it does, your life will change too. So before we wrap up, ask yourself this one question. Who do I think I am? Well, you're about to find out. All right, everyone, that does it for the wrap up of these micro videos. I look forward to seeing you all next week as we jump into the series with the first topic on effective thinking. Now, this one is about one of the most important skills that leaders must have, and that's to think in terms of the big picture. I hope to see you all next week right here in the Lion's Den for the Weekly Roar. Until then, remember, be powerful, but stay poised, just like a lion. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Weekly Roar live event at lionenterprise.com. If you enjoyed this video, please tell others to join us each week here in the Lion's Den. Thanks again, and see you next week.